Thank you, Secretary, and thank you, the entire Commerce team. Thank you for the outstanding work that has been done along with Boston Consulting BCG in preparing India to become a global player in the world trade and restructuring the entire Department of Commerce to make it relevant to the 21st century. The Honorable Prime Minister over the last few years has been regularly focusing on strengthening government processes, preparing government to play a more active role in taking the country forward with greater role of technology, with a much more skilled team, greater degree of participation of the private sector through public-private engagement and stakeholder consultations. And over the last couple of years, the focus on exports has been one of the most defining features of the government's efforts to make India a developed country by 2047. A vision which he articulated from the ramparts of the Red Fort on the 75th Independence Day celebration when we completed 75 years of independence. If India has to become a developed nation when we turn 100 in 2047, there can be no doubt that foreign trade will play a very important role in making this happen. If you study the successful economies around the world, the developed economies, you will observe that countries which expanded on their international trade are the countries which today are developed countries. And those who looked inward and did not expand their horizon remained relatively less developed. The Prime Minister last year set very aggressive targets for export. 400 billion, of course, was for merchandise export. We had thought of a $225 billion service export along with that, so we had thought we'd do about 625 billion. Then services we increased along the year to 250 billion, which was a 20% jump over the previous year. This was despite travel, tourism and hospitality not contributing because of COVID. The good news is that we broke both the targets and collectively we did $675 billion of export, which is about 50 lakh crores for the first time ever in the history of India. The Prime Minister led from the front, engaging with all stakeholders, engaging with associations, export promotion councils, big and small industry, different ministries, 200 missions all over the world, and energized the entire ecosystem. He continuously would monitor the progress through the year. He would guide us in our efforts to not only meet but beat the target. And during the course of this guidance, two important, or rather I would say three important things stood out. One, the fact that the Prime Minister has now asked all the missions across the world to focus on 3 T's. Trade, that's our export, technology, so that India can get the benefit of the world's best technologies, and tourism, which is a big job generator in the country and foreign exchange earner when foreign tourists come to India. The three T's, trade, technology and tourism, are now an integral part of every mission's job or duties, as much as the relationship and geopolitical engagement that they have as a part of their diplomatic outreach. Similarly, the Prime Minister, recognizing that we need to have scale and quality, approved and focused on supporting the growth of Indian industry to make it world class, get economies of scale so that large capacities can be created in select sectors where we have competitive advantage over other countries. Quality can be upgraded and the gaps on critical sectors like semiconductors can be fulfilled in India. So an allocation of 1,97,000 crores, it's nearly $27 billion, and 76,000 crores for semiconductors, that's about $10 billion, were both made to encourage about 15 sectors, including semiconductors. This has been very well received. In fact, every single engagement with industry, the PLI schemes finds mention as something which is a game changer for the future of India. While both these things were being focused on, the Prime Minister also has asked the Karma Yogi, has launched the Karma Yogi mission, under which skill development and upgradation of each government department or ministry's people is also being undertaken. And consequent to that, as a very logical co-activity, the restructuring of various departments, many of which are patterned on whatever was decided maybe 70, 80, 100 years ago, has also been undertaken by different departments. Commerce is privileged to be the first of the block. We immediately got down to the task under the leadership of Mr. B.V.R. Subramaniam, Commerce Secretary, and his colleagues. We have Amit Yadav and Rachna Shah, both Secretary Designate. We have Mr. Sarangi, DGFT, Anand Sarup, and all the other colleagues in the ministry who've all worked painstakingly to visualize and recreate what should be the Department of Commerce looking like to be able to meet the needs of the future, the needs of a developed country, and as an immediate task to take the $675 billion to $2 trillion. That means 3x by 2030. It's not a small achievement. If we can have a $2 trillion export by 2030, it will change the way India engages with the world. It will give us space amongst the top 2 or 3 nations. This is only the export figure. There will also be a corresponding import figure. We will become amongst the top 3 or 4 nations in world trade, or our contribution to world trade. And our sense is collectively, and which has been further strengthened by our very robust engagement with external experts from BCG, that the plan that has been brought up is a very robust, modern department, contemporary to the needs of the hour, and resting on 5 major pillars. The restructuring exercise rests on 5 objectives. A, as I said, increasing India's share in global trade, particularly our share in exports. and consequently increase the share of our exports in our GDP. B, assume a leadership role in multilateral organizations like the WTO and many other organizations of which we are a part. Also expand our engagement, bilateral engagement through foreign free trade agreements, FTAs or economic partnerships with developed countries and other countries. 3, democratization of trade so that we can have a greater role for MSME sector, our farmers and agri sector, our fishermen through the marine exports, animal husbandry through milk and similar processed food products, our weavers, our craftsmen, all of them becoming a part of our international trade. 4th, we want to create 100 Indian brands as global champions. The Prime Minister desires to see large Indian multinationals which can play an increasingly important role not only in giving a boost to Indian economy, creating huge amount of jobs in India, but also strengthening our image across the world, creating high value, high quality and high growth products and services. And lastly, 5th, we are looking at setting up economic zones or industrial hubs across the country which will strengthen the manufacturing base and the service base of the economy, provide plug and play infrastructure and encourage greater investments to come to India. It has been a mammoth endeavor. It is focused on Atmanirbhar Bharat and therefore an Atmanirbhar Commerce Department. The 14 volumes give the picture of what role each section within the department will play, what will be the outcomes expected, what will be the key performance indicators, how will we assess success or failure of each individual in the team. It gives you an organization structure, the role and responsibility matrix, standard operating procedures. All of this has been thought through in great detail so that we can adopt international best practices. Also, we are preparing ourselves for greater engagement with the other countries. As I said, through multilateral and bilateral engagement. At the WTO, India should play an increasingly leadership role through our FTAs. We should expand to newer territories and have new and more modern FTAs. All of this we have studied as a part of this restructuring exercise. Some of the important elements that have come out of the restructuring are a trade promotion body which we propose to form, which will drive the formulation and execution of strategies. Our Indian missions abroad will play an increasingly active role for market intelligence, research and hand-holding Indian exporters and business persons. Digitization of the entire trade facilitation so that the administration of trade is simple, effective and easy to comply with. We are going to rehaul our data analytics ecosystem so that data management becomes more modern and outcome oriented. And lastly, the Indian Trade Service, which is a very reputed and a very valued service. We have several officers in the DGFT from the Indian Trade Service, can also infuse new talent both through government recruitment and from the private sector so that we can have multi-functional teams working in the Department of Commerce. All of this will lead to institutional memory being created so that as officers keep coming and going, long-term institutional memory is retained in the department, and we will be able to engage with the world from a position of strength with significant lessons learned from history and as we go along, so that Indian trade and commerce will be not only a strong element of India's march to prosperity and drive in the Amrit Kal to become a developed nation by 2047, but also play an increasingly important role in serving the needs of the entire world. Once again, my compliments to the entire team in the Commerce Ministry, Boston Consulting Group, all the other stakeholders who participated through extensive consultations, friends from the media for your valuable feedback, which helps us evolve regularly. We'll now be taking all these reports for more significant interministerial consultations, and once a buy-in is there with all the various stakeholders within the government, we'll be restructuring the entire Commerce Department on the lines as will be decided in the course of the further consultations interministerial and with other ministries, ministers, the Honorable Prime Minister's office, all the other elements will be finalized in greater detail. Since the report was ready and with us, we thought we should take the opportunity of sharing it with the people so that we can also probably get more feedback from our stakeholders. Thank you.